Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. We're just doing a very quick, ultra super quick touch-in with our program out here at Mars. This is the last resupply pod that I had planned on docking, at least so far. We do have one more in orbit, but we're kind of leaving that on reserve just in case we need it. And honestly, because I forgot if it was a fuel pod like this one and the last one we docked, or if it was a life support pod um, that are huge and will sustain a crew of 6 for like 5 years. And considering that we have an overabundance of snacks on the station currently, I don't think it's absolutely necessary that we bring it in and increase our part count even further. So we made several Aero braking passes to bring this pod into a lower orbit with super awesome propeller action. Before getting it to a reasonable level with Harmonia Station, and then making a little bit more than 100 meter per second burn to bring down our separation at closest approach once the timing was correct, and then warp on in. There's our station proper. We'll burn to correct, and then get ourselves in a nice position for docking, slowly but surely making our way over to the correct side of the station. I think we're just going to dock it to that life support tank that's sitting there. So hopefully we can empty that tank out at some point in the near future. Please, I just want to get rid of that dumb thing. And then this pod can be responsible for its disposal into the atmosphere. So another single pass approach. Well, that was the plan. Anyway, but I will reduce the sped upness and turn you over to old me. Yep. And docked. Sweet. That was easy enough. Alright, well, we'll get these resources transferred over, and I guess we got some other stuff to get to then. Indeed we do. We have a crew here at Tremonia Station that has been waiting patiently for their turn for my attention to be brought home. This was the inaugural maiden flight of the Mark 6K type Shuriken, the crew ferry. It is a support vessel for the Nemo and Dory lunar transport systems. And we have now officially undocked. We've transferred over absolutely everything that we can onto Tremonia Station, or onto Kauai Potato Station. My mistake. And now we're going to vent all of our excess anythings, including carbon dioxide, wastewater, and solid waste, of which we don't have a whole lot. Most of that gets jettisoned overboard automatically. I can only imagine this long string or cloud of orbital waste products in the general vicinity of the station. Well, that's an unpleasant thought. Anyway, let's get these solar panels out, get the system back up and booted. I have drained all the requisite resources to specification from the developers over at Wookied, and now we're going to get ourselves cleanly pulled away and out of the way so that when we make our retro burn. So we'll just come out here very briefly and set up our node for deorbit. I actually jumped in on an orbit and it took us right over Cape Canaveral, but of course we're going to have to make another pass around. We're too close now to make said deorbit burn. So we're going to see how well this thing can cross range using deflection and such, seeing as how when we come back down we will be very much off. Yeah, look at that. So if we adjust our course, I mean, we're looking like kilometers per second. I think we can do most of that with air, conveniently enough, which is free, and we have wings, so we might just as well use them. All right, well, we are coming up within about a minute of our node to deorbit, so we'll get ourselves angled in here just a little bit. All right, looks like we're plenty clear of KP station. Uh-oh. That's not a good light. Engine is active. No light on our 118K. Very stable. No fuels, eh? Well, okay. We're switching back. Fuels are unlocked. No light. did I try to light this engine when all the tanks were locked? I don't... oh boy. Yep, flame out. It does not think that we have fuel. We absolutely do have fuel. Well, we could do this on RCS. I can stand here and hold the H key for... it's gonna take a real long time. Like a really, really, really long time. Yeah. It doesn't matter how many times I hit the Z key, this engine is not going to light. Because KSP and its glitchiness. So we're gonna F5 and then as soon as this decides, yeah, there we go, and then press and hold F9 to reload the vessel, and that will reset our fuely situation and hopefully get us back up and running again. So anyway, boink, there we go. Looks like we've successfully loaded. That should be well and good enough. All right, now we're loaded. And yep, life support warnings because we only got a couple days left. Ignition. Yes. Good light on the 118K. Finally. All right, so we're about 15 seconds ahead of our node, so we'll make some corrections anyway. Pushing the periapsis further out into the Atlantic, I think, actually works in our favor. This thing is very light. Doesn't weigh a whole hell of a lot and can come down pretty quickly. So we're going to speed through most of the burn. I may have overestimated a little bit. Our current periapsis is right about 50 kilometers. We're going to bring these two windows up so that we can adjust our weight distribution on the fly during our reentry phase. So we'll get ourselves warped all the way around here and then go. All right, time to prepare for our deorbit procedure. Retract these panels, close up the cargo bay. Come on, KSP. There we go. Closed, locked. And I guess we should probably get ourselves oriented around our fuel levels. Yeah, most of the fuel is in the back. We do have some in the nose. We'll probably move some of that around a little bit as we see fit. I want to see how this thing is going to go. I've got atmospheric autopilot set up and ready to be engaged. It will only be moderating side slip. The rest of the controls will be hands-on. Do not forget to turn off SAS. Do not forget to turn off SAS. The two systems do not like each other. You should not be using both of them at the same time, as I found out in several practice runs of this thing. Embarrassingly enough. All right, time warp to lock ourselves in. Go. So all we need to do really is deflect a bunch north and see if we've got the cross range. I'm still trying to kind of dial in how to deorbit this thing so as to bring it to a runway landing. So no pressure. I'm really hoping to get one this run, but please do not be surprised if we miss by many tens of hundreds of miles. So we're going to speed up a good portion of this because the K is amazingly well balanced and just flies like a dream, really. SAS is now off. Master switch for atmospheric autopilot has been engaged, so we are mostly hands-on for this descent, but for the most part I could just leave the controls alone. You'll notice there in the bottom left our pitch barely deviates more than a degree or two, although our nose up does get a little beyond what I would ideally like to see at this phase in the descent. And I don't know if I should be maintaining lots of nose up to increase braking and bring us down sooner, or keep the nose at a lower pitch to increase cross range. So now the RCS starts to step up and really do some things. I've decided to go kind of split the difference. 45, I guess, is maximum braking. 20 is minimum for most cross range. So we're going to split the difference at about 30 degrees or so, and then try to deflect ourselves north so we can try to angle as much as we can towards Cape Canaveral. We're really not seeing much effect on that displacement just yet, but we're also there's just not a whole lot of air around us to do any said deflection. Now we are already down to 6.6 kilometers per second, and we have not yet crossed even into Mexico. So at this point, I think my dreams of a runway landing were shortly being dashed, especially because it's going to cost us a lot of speed to make such a heavy deflection. And now you can start to see our course deviating with our altitude getting down to around 65 to 60 some odd kilometers. We start to see some serious airflow around the control surfaces, and that actually puts us on a pretty good line for Florida. I just don't have the speed for Florida. We're also going to start experimenting around with some weight balance stuff. Of course, not during physics warp. That's a terrible idea. You should never move mass around the spacecraft in any kind of physics warp. That we'll get a little more weight in the nose and see if we can reduce our pitch down to about 20 degrees and see how much cross range we can get. We are about to clear all of Mexico and head into the Gulf of Mexico, but we're down to about 3.1 kilometers per second, and I don't think we have the cross range to clear all of the water. I don't think we're going to Florida today, and really just a little bit more northward angling, and we really could have had it if I had just I don't know, set that periapsis way out in the Atlantic and then maybe just tried to glider spiral it on in. Anyway, so it looks like we're going to shoot for somewhere around New Orleans, or at least maybe in the Louisiana Delta area. So we'll fly over this random island that I'm not entirely sure what it is. One day I'm going to land there just to say that we did. And then we'll start looking for a landing site here in the middle of the night. Very sorry that it is a nighttime landing for this inaugural flight of the Mark 6K, but you know, telemetry kind of dictated where we had to be versus where I would have liked it, and instead of using just a bunch of life support. All right, well, we're going to tip a little bit more of our weight in the nose to see what it does. It looks like we're still getting some nose down on the stick from our flight computer atmospheric autopilot. So we'll just try out different weight balances and see what the hell happens here. But it does look like there is a runway off of our nose to the right hand side by a little bit. Anyway, I'm going to turn you over to old me, who's going to do some hands-on flying. Alright, well, yeah, it's still, no, I guess that's pushing nose up, because thrusters are firing upward, trying to increase our pitch. Anyway, I don't know, I guess I would like a little less of that, so let's try pumping this towards the back. Yeah, we're still getting a little bit of nose up, I suppose. Oh well. Alright, let's shed some of this altitude. We're still supersonic. Below Mach 2, it's still above Mach 1. So happy good morning sonic boom, Louisiana. Good to see you. We might be too high for them to really hear. 15 kilometers altitude. I don't know what the range on a sonic boom from this thing would be, but I think I do have good eyes on a runway. Maybe right there. It's hard to tell from this distance. Well, there was one. Dang it. Wish I had seen that sooner, although I guess we were going way too fast. That'd be a lot of just flying in circles, literally corkscrewing. Okay, I'll just leave that one alone. Oh, clouds, come on. Of course, these thick, black, inky clouds that the Mississippi Delta is just known for at night. Yeah, okay. So we need to get below said clouds, down to about 244 meters per second. I guess we'll just start angling ourselves in. I'm going to try to watch the G-loading this time. I know I've done high G maneuvers in this aircraft before. Spacecraft, shuttlecraft. But we're going to try to take it easy on this entirely rookie crew. Let's deploy our brakes. And are those supposed to... I thought those were supposed to tip the other way. I could be wrong. That's another question I need to ask the good folks over at Wookieed. It seems to stay stable, so it's probably just a non-issue. I guess it just looks weird to me. But hey, if it flies, right? Okay, that I'm 90% sure that's a runway. Just about. So, yeah, we're going to be a little hot by the time we get there. We are accelerating 217 meters per second, so I foresee some S-turns in our future. Just to be clear, now what part of this is the runway and what part of this is the taxiway? That's anybody's guess. I guess I really need to like fly past it, over it, and then like turn around just to make sure of where I'm landing. Hey, at least it's not a golf course or a residential area. We're going to land on pavement this time. Of that I am certain. What said pavement is intended for, I am not. As long as everyone survives. Yeah, still only about 90% sure that's a runway. It does, however, look like it's got several lakes of lava surrounding it. Or nearby. Somebody really ought to do something about that. Yeah, 232 meters per second. I do need to trade in some of this altitude. We're way too high and way too fast. But, I mean, if I'm going to have too much of some things, I'd prefer it be altitude and speed. Alright, let's, yeah, 5Gs. 7? Man. Nimble little bugger. So we're just going to make some S-turns, cross-ranging. We need to bleed off a lot of this speed and a good chunk of this altitude. I mean, we'll save some of both, I guess. There we go. And we'll just, we'll throw this spent RCS fuel just all over the place. I mean, I'd say it's in such tiny quantities, but these thrusters are really doing some work. Man, an extra 118 meters per second left on the main or on the OMS engine runtime, which is a whole lot of runtime on the RCS. The other fuel, the 31 meters per second at a 15.12 TWR, are our HG3 main engines. We have liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen for the fuel cells. Alright, let's get in here and arm our parachutes. These are drag chutes for runway touching downs. And yeah, we're still pretty high, but down to 130 meters per second. So we're going to trade in some of this altitude, pick up a little speed just to make sure we have the capability to get onto the runway. And again, I'm not sure if the fuzzy dark spot is the runway or if the slightly less fuzzy, slightly less darker spot to the right of it is the runway or the taxiway. And to be honest, I probably won't know until I'm touched down on it or someplace close to it. So I hope it's late enough to where there's nobody working in this what appears to be an industrial area. Just in case. Alright, so geared down and locked. We are 165 meter per second. That's a little slow, but I think we've got the glide slope to make this a thing, so we'll just use our yaw controls, get ourselves angled in, bleed off the last little bit of this. There we go, 140 meter per second. That's a solid approach. So we're just gonna aim right here-ish. By here I mean over to the left just a little bit. 129 meter per second. Okay, so I actually don't know what the stall speed for this is going to be. I'd prefer not to find out over this obvious lake of fire. Come on, KSP. Not now! Alright, and yeah, nose up, 115 meter per second. We can still climb, just not very well. I'm going to assume these are the runway numbers. 30 meters. Oh god, we're on top of it already. Brakes. 15 meters. Shoots. Touchdown. Ooh. Brakes, brakes, brakes. Wow. And that was fast. It's got to be like the shortest runway landing ever. I don't think we covered like next to none of the runway. Is this a runway? Maybe. We're over here, so probably not. Where the big black streaks are, that's the runway. We are off on, I don't know. Not that it matters. That's going to do it for this one, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate it, and I will see all of you in the next one. So, until then, see you later.